Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, we return to Mythic, Cheshire, and to one of Thomas Middleton's pieces of folklore for the Valley of Longdendale. In it, he notes that the town of Glossop has a strange tradition of producing magicians. In this particular case, the great historical magician leaves us some plot hooks. One is that he seems to have bound an aerial power, a kind of demon responsible for tempests, giving it a task that we see in Cornish folklore of making a rope out of sand. We also see that the magician was able to train at least 2 students at once, and that somehow he was able to procure a book containing a bound aerial power in Staffordshire. We can't be certain to which realm this magician was aligned, but as we look through future pieces of folklore, I hope to be able to connect this jigsaw puzzle piece to others. I'm about to hand you over to the LibriVox recorder of this. It was Nick D. Thank you to Nick D. and to his production team.
Legends of Longdendale by Thomas Middleton. The Magic Book. Read by Nick D. There is a spot prettily situated near the town of Glossop, known as Mossy Lea. It is notable as having been the home of a great magician who dwelt there in the olden time, and who was renowned far and wide. He was perhaps the most learned and powerful of all magicians who have lived since the days of Merlin, but unfortunately his name has been forgotten. Such is fame. So renowned was he in his own day. However, the pupils came to him not only from all parts of England, but even from across the sea. These pupils desired to be inculcated with the mystic lore and invested with the same degree of skill in the exercise of the magic arts that their masters possessed. Accordingly, they left no stone unturned in their efforts after knowledge. That is to say, they were not over-particular as to the means they adopted to secure the end that they had in view. They strove to impress upon everyone with whom they came in contact their vast superiority to ordinary mankind, and generally they proved to be a big nuisance to the countryside. But there were 2 of these pupils who were especially curious. They were constantly prying into nooks and corners which were labeled private. They were ever meddling with business that did not concern them. By some evil chance, the magician fixed upon these 2 pupils to act as his agents for the transaction of some business in a town in Staffordshire, and to bring back with them a very remarkable book, which dealt with magic, and which was moreover itself endowed with magical powers. Thus the 2 luckless youths became all unwittingly the heroes of the following Longdendale tradition. History, as is often the case in these legends of the olden time, has forgotten to record for us the names of the 2 notable youths. Hence we are driven to the necessity of naming them ourselves, in order to distinguish them from each other. So we call one Ralph and the other Walter. It has already been said that they were 2 curious youths, ever ready to pry into things, and one night preceding their journey, they indulged in this pastime to the full. While they were at supper, the magician had bidden them to repair to his private chamber, ere they retired to rest, and having entered therein, they were treated to the information already recorded, namely, that they would have to make a journey on his behalf, transact some business, and bring back with them a magic book, with the addition of the following piece of advice and warning. Look to it that ye heed what I now say, said the magician, for by the shades 'tis a matter of mighty import. Ye shall get the book, and ye shall jealously guard it. On no account shall you open it. More I do not vouchsafe to you. But remember my warning. Open not the book at your peril. Now get ye rest, for tomorrow you must e'en start with the rising sun. The youths left the room looking very solemn and good, with many promises that they would faithfully remember their master's charges, and what was of more consequence, that they would act upon them. But for all that, they did not retire to rest. When they reached the passage leading to their apartment, Ralph said to Walter, What thinkest thou of this quest of ours? Is our master treating us fairly in thus keeping secrets this matter? We have paid high fee for tuition and magic, and here he sends us on our first quest, and we are e'en to know nothing of the mission on which we go. Thou art right, said Walter. 'Tis most unfair, and methinks our master has in view the acquisition of some potent power. If we engage in the quest, it is but fair we should share the spoil, the knowledge to be gained. To which Ralph added, "I am with thee, comrade, and I would know more of this business before I start." Here he whispered to his companion, and the latter nodded his head in acquiescence, after which the two stole together in silence to the door of the magician's room, and in turn set their eyes to the keyhole, whilst their ears drank in every sound. The magician seated before a crucible, muttering certain incantations which are as foreign language to the unlearned. But the two students understood the meaning of the sentences quite well, and the results of their eavesdropping appeared to be giving them satisfaction. When the magician made signs of coming to the end of his labor, they skipped nimbly away and sought their beds, chuckling triumphantly as they ran. It is not to the purpose of the legend to dwell upon the incidents of their next day's journey. Suffice it to say that on that day they were early astir, that they went gaily upon their way, and in due course received the magic book from its owner. Then they set out on their homeward journey, looking very good and innocent until they were well out of sight, but withal both determined to see the inside of that volume before the day was over. Soon they came to a lonely part of the country, and here they sat down, intending to gratify their curiosity. "If there is knowledge contained within, then am I determined to drink of the well thereof, and become even one of the wise," so spoke Ralph. And Walter also said, "And I am of like mind, comrade, so bring hither the book, and let us fall to." They placed the thick volume upon their knees, and quickly undid the handsome clasp which held the sides together, when lo, a veritable earthquake seemed to have come upon the scene. The ground shook, houses tottered, walls and fences fell down. Tremendous whirlwind arose, which uprooted trees and tossed the forest giants about like little wisps of hay. Even the students were terrified at the result of their curiosity, and as for the ordinary mortals, why, there is no describing the panic in which they were thrown. When the luckless students recovered from the first shock of astonishment, they could only bemoan their folly in discarding the warning of so potent a magician as their master, and they were filled with dread as to the punishment they would receive when they next stood before him. "Of a truth we are undone," said Ralph. "Our master will never more trust us." "We are like to be beaten to death with the tempest," said Walter. "Who can stay the power of this evil spirit that our mad curiosity hath thus let loose?" Now, luckily, the magician no sooner beheld the tempest than he had once divined the cause of the hubbub of the elements, and with commendable promptitude he proceeded with all speed to the spot where the students lay with the magical volume. Arrived there, he pronounced an incantation, and then, by magic means known to himself alone, rapidly stilled the tempest which the ill-timed curiosity of his pupils had brought forth. In the words of the old chronicle, he laid the evil spirit, commanding him as a punishment to make a rope of sand to reach the sky, which venture no doubt had a salutary effect upon the spirit, for there is no later mention of any similar antics on its part. We may conclude from this circumstance that the spirit has found the task assigned to it as a punishment greater than it can discharge, and that it is still laboring away at the sand rope, which is not much nearer reaching the sky than it was when the work first began.
Your saga may vary.